Hi, thanks for tuning in to my official YouTube channel. Go to my website, www.susanmeeling.com. Make sure to like my official YouTube videos and subscribe to my official YouTube channel. Share my links to my official YouTube videos as well. Thank you in advance. So, many years ago, so this is 2022, many years ago, although depending on what you consider as many years ago, back in the year of either 2015 or 2016, I had created one of those online polls. And in this online poll, I thought that it would be a phenomenal interview to listen to, because for those who know, I had a head injury on Palm Sunday in 2000, and I dealt with a subarachnoid hemorrhage in the frontal lobe of my brain that took 8.5 years to dissipate outside of the full view of the MRI and CAT scans. And in the after effects of, I deal with headaches and migraines, cognitive disorders, and memory deficits. And so when I pay attention to the news, because I don't really watch or listen to a lot of pop culture, to what most people would consider as pop culture. So in what I consider as pop culture, that would be, the movies that are not considered documentaries, and TV shows that aren't considered the news. They can be a reporting style or a documentary, and I don't really consider that as pop culture per se, even though they can and have done certain documentaries on pop culture. In my opinion, though, that's different. So I'll give an example of that. There's the first movie that I saw when I was 18 years old biologically. For those who don't know, I grew up in a household where I was not allowed to watch a movie above a G-rated. I was allowed to read the newspaper, which when you take that in consideration, that is what it is. And I was born and raised in New Jersey, which then there's that, because it was the 1980s and 1990s that I grew up in the state of New Jersey. But I also grew up going to the 5 boroughs of New York City, which again, I wasn't allowed to watch any movies above a G-rated movie, but I was allowed to go walk around the 5 boroughs of New York City. However you view that, for those who know the 1980s and 1990s, same thing in regards to Pittsburgh and Philadelphia. And so, however you view that particular aspect of common sense, I don't know. Though I can make some sarcastic jokes about that, although it's still the truth. And so it's one of those, I grew up seeing a lot of stuff, but I wasn't allowed to watch a PG-13 movie until I was over the age of 13 years old, which, to be honest, it was literally for my 14th birthday that I was allowed to watch my first PG-13 movie. And it was Cat's Eye. That's what I got to see for my first PG-13 movie, sort of stuff. Which is an irony, because if you actually watch and pay attention to the storyline of Cat's Eye, especially the second portion of Cat's Eye, there's a little bit of irony in a few regards. And so, because for those who don't know, there's this smoking cessation group, and this guy says he wants to do whatever, and in order to do this, they have their ways in comparison, which, for those who told me that they knew how people were from New Jersey, I kind of have this sensation there are people who could take a look at that second part of Cat's Eye and be like, that seems a little bit more New Jersey than a bunch of whatever the examples are in pop culture. And I'm sure that there are certain references. So I did see, the Jersey Shore. I don't know when it came out, I'll be honest. However, I did see it. I think it was 2016 or 2017 when I saw the series, and it's like, I remember that from kindergarten. You know, except for the alcohol part, which, you know, just envision sippy cups. And in some ways, that really was, you know, for those who remember Asher Holmes Elementary School. You know, subtract the alcohol part, put in juicy juice, you know, and because I don't know what other areas, depending on their own elementary school, though Asher Holmes Elementary School, we had a standard that in an overall way, our biological parents or legal guardians or whatever the situation was, depending on the individual, we had specific standards that we had to live up to. So, you know, we actually had to talk about things. We actually had to have discussions. We went into all that stuff. And again, as I've explained in prior lectures on my official YouTube channel, we had brand new books when we were taught in elementary school, and we were given textbooks from college. That was our elementary school. If you actually take a look at most elementary school books, the ones that are handed out from, now granted, at this point in time in 2022, it's different in some capacities. However, up until about the 2010s, if you actually take a look at what the books are, they do look as college textbooks. And I'm sure if you were to actually research some of those books, you could probably find a correlation to some college somewhere and see if that is a particular college textbook. And you'd also be capable to see the decade or the year that it was used as a college textbook. This is something that I had personally noticed in the 1980s, and going and seeing my cousin Jade and also her cousins, although I know there is the difference between her cousins and her cousins, which I think by technicalities that makes them my cousins, but I don't know how. So her dad is African American, and his mom and dad are her grandparents, or our grandmama and grandpapa. And then her mom is my biological father's Aunt Helen. So her mom is my great Aunt Helen. So even though there's not the direct link to her cousins, not cousins for those who understand, her cousins and brothers and sisters, because of how certain things are, I know that there is the relative aspect of relation. I just don't know what the terminology is. In my thoughts, it's, well, you know, related to second cousin, you know, twice removed but put back in, and, you know, baby daddy, mama's brothers of something another. And so I have a sensation that those below the Mason-Dixon line might understand that a little bit more so. I made attempts to explain this when I was in Marlboro Middle School. It was extremely difficult because it was New Jersey. And so, you know, there was a little bit of a difference in that particular reference that I can joke about. Nonetheless, as a biological adult, the majority of times when I would watch a movie, if I watched a movie, I really didn't like movies that didn't have documentaries. So I did watch some, but with the fact that the subarachnoid hemorrhage in the frontal lobe of my brain was extremely prevalent in the years of 2000 through 2008 and a half, you know, that's how grown up I am. I can joke, you know. I'm so grown up, it's 2008 and a half. It's not 2008 and 3/4, okay? Let me get that clear, okay? So, but it's 2008 and a half. So, you know, it's not 2008 and 3/4, so it's a little bit less of amount of time regarding that subarachnoid hemorrhage in the frontal lobe of my brain. Nonetheless, in those particular references, the first movie I had seen was the 50-year or 75-year edition of The Exorcist. And so I had wanted to see something that I could actually believe was real. When I went, so for those who remember Blockbuster, I'm going to take you back in time to the year of 2001, or 2000 technically, no, it's 2001. And so I'm going to take you back in time. It's 2022 now, whenever this is watched, whatever, and listen to, so way back when we had, so those who don't know, way back when we had these stores that you actually went to. And in some of these stores, they had a movie selection. So for those who know what streaming is, there were physical objects in these stores way back when, 21 years ago. And on these, what would look like bookshelves, were these different containers that had these things called VHSs and DVDs. And in these different areas, there were all these different genres of sections. And way back when, 21 years ago, which really isn't that long, you could look at these different physical objects in this physical store, and you could pick up these different cases and turn them around, and instead of on the streaming where it's right there at the flat section of whatever screen you have, you would read the words. Way back when, 21 years ago. And then you would make the decision of which one you wanted to watch. And you'd go to this counter where you check out, you had to have a membership and all this stuff, and then you'd pay for it. And then if you returned it late, then you were charged a fee per day, in comparison to the streaming aspect where you have whatever amount of time or whatever membership aspect in comparison. So I was all grown up at the age of 18 years old biologically. And I was all, I want to see something scary. Because I wasn't ever allowed to watch that as a child. Granted, again, it was the 1980s and 1990s that I was born and raised growing up around New Jersey and New York and Pennsylvania. But no, I wanted to see a movie because I wasn't allowed to see that as a child. So in my thoughts, I'm gonna see something that's like so rated R. And so in my thoughts, I'm walking around this brick and mortar store. I'm gonna see something so raw. I'm gonna be so raw. See, these are actual thoughts, by the way. And so I'm gonna totally see something so I can see a rated R movie because I'm 18 years old. I'm gonna see something so raw. I'm gonna be so raw because, like, what's totally, you know, raw? I can look back now in 2022 and make fun of myself, obviously. And so, you know, I'm gonna see something. Where's the scary raw section? All right, I'm gonna go take a look at that. And those who know how people were in New Jersey during the 1980s, 1990s, you can see this sort of representation of, especially in the thought process. So, you know, here I am in, you know, Blockbuster. It's like, I'm gonna, in my thoughts yet again, I'm gonna totally see something so raw. Totally so raw. I'm gonna see something so raw. So raw. Total badass, that's it. Totally 18 years old now. What? And so I go to the horror section genre, and I see, you know, the different whatevers. Then I see The Exorcist, and I'm like, you know what? Okay, that looks like it might be scary. Okay. And then there's a documentary, and I liked the library. I enjoyed going to the library. So, ooh, there's a documentary too? That's great! Yay! Yay! So I watched the documentary first. And because I grew up going to Old Tennant Presbyterian Church, which was used as a hospital during the Revolutionary War, and then certain situations that had occurred when I was a child attending. Oh, okay, well, yeah, that makes sense. I've seen that before. I already have seen certain spirits, such as General George Washington's spirit. There's the office behind the church that was General George Washington's, and it's like, oh, okay, well, you know, I can relate to that as far as certain things. I've seen this, I've seen that. And so the documentary portion, it's one of those, well, I remember when the congregation had this board meeting where they wanted to remove the dirt underneath Old Tennant Presbyterian Church. And I had raised my hand in the middle of the board meeting. My biological mother was a deacon and my biological father was a trustee. And my biological parents were like, stop it, don't do that. No, I got a question. Pastor Mackenzie, excuse me, Pastor Mackenzie, hello. And he was a chaplain in the Army Reserve. And so he looks over, he's like, what, Susan? And it's like, excuse me, you know how everybody makes fun of me? And he goes, not everybody makes fun of you. Okay, let me clarify. You know how in the center aisle of the pews that you walk down each Sunday, how everybody makes fun of me in youth group because instead of walking the way normal people do, I go like this. And then later I was told that there's the original pastor's coffin because General George Washington had ordered that the Brits not be capable to desecrate his grave. And so, you know how everybody makes fun of me in youth group for doing that? Well, if you're going to put a basement in, shouldn't you leave that alone because General George Washington had mandated it? I mean, not just because of, I mean, you know, I know it's a bit of amount of time, but being respectful, you know? And the congregants laughed and thought I was just being a child. And so, fast forward, they start digging. And then we have another board meeting. And it's an emergency board meeting for the church because they find this wooden box. And they're like, what do we do because of this board meeting situation? It's New Jersey in the 1990s, in late 1980s, early 1990s. So I raise my hand again. Excuse me, my biological mother and biological father, like, Susan, stop it. No, no, excuse me, Pastor Mackenzie, hello. And he goes, what, Susan? So where is this wooden box? Is this wooden box just so happen to be directly in the area where everybody's made fun of me for this point in time? Like, hypothetically, could I be accurate? And, you know, this warning that I've given, do you think, hypothetically, and it's just an old wives' tale. You don't really need to worry about it, except I'm kind of worried about it. You know how people make fun of me hanging out by General George Washington's office out back behind the church? Excuse me, I think I might have something to say that would be considered valid. And so instead, they decide they're going to remove this box. It just so happens to be about 6 feet long. Just so happens to be a wooden box that's about 6 feet long. Excuse me, excuse me, excuse me. You got this building behind Old Scott's Hall where we do coffee hour. Do you think you could do an overall measurement of some boxes that are in there? Maybe, just maybe, hypothetically, you could find like, no, Susan. No, and this is some of the other congregants. No, you're just being a child. What movies have you been watching? Disney? Fairly certain this isn't in Disney. So just gonna throw this out there. Maybe we could just put some dirt back there instead of doing that. Like, can we just leave it? Like, can we just like respect the situation, leave it as it? No, we're having a board meeting and we're gonna do this voting with it. Excuse me though, like it's been proven, and a bunch of the congregants were like, no, it's not proven. Just because these are words that were used, just because there is a 6 foot long box that just so happens to be directly where you walk funny, not just in the overall vicinity of the line, but specifically in the location, that just because it just so happens to be in the exact spot that you start walking funny over the whatever, just because of that, what would make you think that you're accurate? Do you have X-ray vision? No, I think I got common sense. I think so. I'm fairly certain that's common sense. Oh, you're just being superstitious. No. See, if I was being superstitious, I'd be doing other things in comparison. This is common sense. So they have their little meeting, continue, and they vote to pull it out against everything that I bring up. So then, they pull it out, and it's a box. It's about 3 to 3.5 feet wide and about 6 feet long. Well, what happens? Do they put it back in? No. We have another board meeting in charge. Excuse me, Pastor Mackenzie. Hello? Hi. Hi. Excuse me. Hi. Can we put it back? Can we just leave it this is a church. You're supposed to have this religious viewpoint and stuff. Can we just put it back and be cool about it? And I'm seeing General George Washington's spirit losing his what I guess would be considered a mind. I don't know. And he's just rah, 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 rah. It's don't be mad. I'm doing what I can. You see me doing what I can, and he's just rah. And it's so G-rated movies though. Excuse me, I don't think so. They vote to open the box. So go out there, and I'm just so when they're doing the opening, it's do you mind? Could you actually listen to me and do as I actually tell you? And if you're accurate, we'll take it in consideration. Except it's a box that is 6 feet long and about 3.5 feet wide. What more do you actually need for proof? Well, there's all these carvings along the outside of this box. It doesn't look like a coffin. Yeah, well, when was this buried? They probably didn't have all of these board meetings when that was put in. I'm just going to throw that out there. Well, we know better because we're having this meeting. Except the fact that it doesn't have what we think is a normal shape. Well, does it really matter? What is wrong with you people? So they open it. All sorts of inscriptions on the inside, all this whatever comes out, like there's, okay, I expected the cloud as far as like different stuff because of the time frame, but there's other stuff that I see going out of it, and I'm like, excuse me, can we close this? And I actually physically went to go close it, and I got in trouble because I went to stop it. And it was like, why am I getting in trouble when I'm preventing certain things? What is wrong with you? And so I dealt with, for those who remember the 1980s, 1990s, we're gonna go to the car afterwards and we're gonna have a conversation with your backside. No. Ironically, I didn't deal with that, particularly when it came out to be. Because even my own biological mother and biological father took a step back and they were like, okay, that's a little much. That's whatever. Well, there's a skeleton there, and it's in tattered clothes, or it's a black robe. It's all tattered up, got a bunch of different holes in it and stuff like that. And the skeletal arms are like this. There's a literal book right between the arms. Excuse me. I have a disagreement, excuse me. And so before I can say anything, they literally remove the arms out of the way and remove the Bible from Pastor William Tennant's cold, dead hands. Literally. Like, not in a metaphor, not in a proverbial way, literally remove the Bible from his cold, dead hands. And then they open the book because, gotta make sure. Huge wooden cross that's around his neck, as far as the way he was laid out. No. This is what they did. And I'm just like, why? Like, I can see this. Do you have eyeballs in your skulls? Can you see this? I'm watching energy swirling. And it's like, excuse me. Does anybody else see this? I see the symbols lighting up on the exterior of this box and the interior. I was like, so do you think that you should leave that and like, can we have a board meeting where we put it back? Can we have do we have to have a board meeting? Well, we had to have a board meeting to discuss what we were going to do. And it's like, can you just put everything back, close it up, put it back where it was, and then just leave it? No, because of the regulations, because of the state of New Jersey. So that, the brand new coffin box. Excuse me, could you just leave it alone? So they get this fancy schmancy. And they do whatever, and I'm like, that's not good enough. It's not good enough. It's not good enough. No, General George Washington's spirit is just rawr at that point. And they're like, oh, that's just an old wives' tale. Except he became president of the United States of America. Hello. Good morning. And the congregants are like, oh, Susan, it's just an old wives' tale. Except it's not. It's literally occurring. Literally right there. Can you listen to me? Well, if there's enough evidence at some point in time, we'll listen to you and go by your instructions. Okay, but how much more do you need at this point in time? How many board meetings has there been? Literally stopped the construction because of this. Can you actually pay attention to the details? Oh, Susan, you're just a child. You don't know any, except I knew exactly where it was. You know what, Susan? You've got an attitude problem. No, you have the attitude problem that you don't like, that I'm pointing out the truth. The facts came out literally, figuratively, metaphorically, and physically. Physically came out, literally right there. And so then, as this is going on, if those who know what Old Testament Presbyterian Church looks as, I'm looking out the window and I'm seeing all this energy stuff. And I'm like, excuse me, do you see what I see? You know, yeah, I can make a joke in this particular reference of, do you see what I see? You know, because that's an actual hymn. Excuse me, hello. And they're like, oh, Susan, it's just an old wives' tale. Except it's not. It's not an old wives' tale, it's the truth. Do you see the box out there? And they're like, yes. So it's not an old wives' tale. And they're like, no, it is. Except it's not. This is real. It's a real box. And then how disrespectful are you? You have his skeleton out in the middle of whatever. In comparison, you could have at minimum closed the box, been respectful to his remains, and instead you're just doing whatever. Do you have any common sense? What is wrong with you? You ripped the Bible from his cold dead hands and all this sort of stuff. What is wrong with you? Why? And so I dealt with what I dealt with when it came to my biological father, and I didn't care. I did not care. This is unacceptable. You consider yourselves to be this. This is absolutely ridiculous. You should be ashamed of yourselves. I don't know how you can look at yourselves. I don't even know how you can tolerate who you are. Because what type of garbage is that? You have to live with the fact that you knew that you shouldn't have done this. Oh, you're a child and da-da-da. What type of child are you to care about this? Well, you know, common sense. Common sense. Leave it alone. Don't do anything to cause any needless problems. Actually fix and repair this correctly. What do? They get a new coffin. No, that's not acceptable. They put his Bible with him again, though. Woohoo! Woo! Except like all those inscriptions from the original wooden casket. No. What did they do with it? Who knows? I don't know. I don't know what they did. The stuff that was also in there, don't know what he did. Don't know. Don't know what any of the congregants did with that. It's like, what is wrong with you? Why are you so stupid? And Susan, those are mean words. Excuse me, this is New Jersey. Don't pretend that these are mean words by me telling you you are stupid. Do not pretend that those are mean words. Just because your feelings are whatever. Do not pretend that that's mean words in the 1980s, 1990s in the state of New Jersey. Do not pretend that. And so, you know, we had another board meeting for which casket. And then we had another board meeting for how it was going to be put back in. And then we had another board meeting for what was going to be done regarding the construction. So if you go in the cellar or the basement of Old Testament Presbyterian Church, there is an actual wall. You walk down the stairs, you got a little bit of an open area of whatever's down there, and then there's an actual wall with this little itty bitty plaque, and here lies the remains of whatever. You people are going to suffer for that, and I am not going to feel any sympathy for you whatsoever. That's what I told them. And they were like, you don't have the right to say that. Oh, actually I do. I have every right to say that, and I mean it. You are going to suffer for what you did. You infuriated the spirit of General George Washington. You disrespected Pastor William Tennett's remains. You disrespected the Revolutionary War soldiers that are throughout these grounds. You disrespected the Battle of Monmouth grounds and all that. Even the British soldiers spirits are infuriated with you people. I do not have sympathy for you at all. When this comes around and actually occurs, I am not going to feel sympathy for you at all. You will deal with whatever you deal with. I will not be upset for you. I don't care. How dare you not only not care about the grounds here while you claim to be whatever as far as congregants of this church, but also how dare you not care about anybody in this city, which is Tenet, New Jersey. How dare you not care about anybody in this township, which is Manalapan Township. How dare you not care about any of the cities or towns around this area in this state, New Jersey. I don't care. I am so disgusted by your allowance of this. How dare you stand by and do nothing? You should be ashamed of yourselves. I hope there is a day where you actually get the gumption to actually make the correct choices. Not because of what is considered as popular, but because it is taking a stand in the correct ways. I hope that you actually have a way to fix and repair that, because that is unacceptable. And so within about a 1 month time frame, church goes on. Each Sunday, church goes on. Each Wednesday, chimes and handbell choir goes on. Each Thursday, the different choirs go on. Each Friday, whatever studies go on. Saturdays, I think, were the days off. Sundays, as far as Sunday school and church. A month, maybe a month and a half. And during one Sunday sermon, or right before the Sunday sermon because of how it went, Pastor Mackenzie asks the congregation, is there anybody who has any prayer requests? And there's a congregant in the back, and it's a male, and he rose his hand and he goes, Pastor Mackenzie, why did you play a prank on me? Pastor Mackenzie says, I didn't play any pranks, what are you talking about? And the congregant says, I went up to the church grounds and I saw your robe, and it was the black robe that he would wear, and it went around one of the corners of the church. And so I ran up to go and catch you, and we went, and, we have our, banter back and forth, but I went to go do that, and then at the next corner I saw your robe just kind of around the church building. And then I got to that point, and then as I was getting closer, it was weird because it seemed like the church building had expanded and contracted. And so then when I get to a certain point around another corner, I saw your robe go like that, around and around and around and around. And then at some point in time, it's 2.5, 3 hours that went by. And it was weird. I wasn't out of breath. I didn't have this issue. I didn't have that issue, so on and so forth. And Pastor Mackenzie says, I wouldn't ever do that. That's not something I would ever do. I don't know what you're talking about. Well, a bunch of other congregants raise their hand, and they give different examples of that. They go and say, yeah, no, I called out to you, and you didn't even acknowledge. All I saw was the back of this, and then the robe that went like that. And the robe that went like that around the corner. And Pastor Mackenzie said, you've got to be kidding. No. It was a huge uproar in Old Tenet Presbyterian Church. And, the congregants, they're like, no. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, I know exactly what it is. I warned you, I warned you. I wasn't saying this out loud, but I go and look out one of the windows where General George Washington's spirit is, where his office is. And I see the original death angel. And people can say whatever they say, as they have, but at some point the clarifications and verifications. And I look and so, but I couldn't see anything above a G-rated movie. I look and I'm just, well, it's not that scary. It's not that scary at all, whatsoever. It's actually in its own odd sort of way, as far as the original Death Angel. In some odd way, it's actually kind of stunning to look at. The way the wings were and stuff like that, the actual, however you want to say it, as far as the ethereal, and wow, it's actually not that frightening. Huh. And so, and then I see Pastor William Tennant's spirit. So I raise my hand. And at that point, Pastor Mackenzie's like, yes, Susan, what do you want to say? What? Come on, because you're... I don't want to deal with some of this other stuff. What's going on? Those of you who have seen this, do you see, have you ever seen, any of you, have you ever seen the front part? And so some of them say yes. And I ask, does he have a ruffly, poofy, white lace something another? And the congregants say, yeah, like it's this, that, and is it about 4 or 5 layers of this, that, and the other? They're like, yeah. And I said, and so I go and I describe what I'm literally seeing. And so so Pastor Mackenzie doesn't really wear a suit. He wears slacks and a button-down shirt. Do you normally see a high collar, almost like what would be in certain Marine Corps dress blues, as far as the collar aspect? Do you see when you've done this? And so I'm looking off to the side because I'm capable to actually see the representation, and I'm like, okay, do you see, when you've had this, do you see these long, poofy, like there's a tight bound of fabric here and here, but then like it's a poof when it comes to the sleeve in comparison to Pastor Mackenzie's robe that he's wearing, where it just flows. And they were like, yeah, actually, yeah. And I was like, well, remember when I told you that you probably should have just left it alone? Remember when I told you this? Remember when I told you that? So on and so forth. And these 3 are just standing there like this. And I'm like, remember when I told you? Yeah, but you're just a child. Well, right there, out that window, you can see if you see. And some people said they saw it, some people said, no, it's just because of the lightning glass. Except you're seeing an entire form of General George Washington. Do you see, and I go and I explain what they're, as far as what General George Washington was wearing. And they're like, yeah, and do you see this as far as who is Pastor William Tennant? Yeah, and do you see the angel of death right there? And they're like, no. How don't you see that when the other 2 are right there? And so I make attempts to explain. And I'm like, do you see the wings that are much taller than the windows? And people look up and they're like, no, don't see that. Do you see the face of this as far as the, no, don't see. How do you see these parts, but you don't see that? And they were like, oh, you're just being a child. Except he's right there. And so you're just being a child. Except I'm seeing what I think is the angel of death over there. And so they're like, no, well, it was as it was. So fast forward to the year 2001, and I'm watching the documentary of The Exorcist. And I'm just, well, I have all these childhood experiences that I remember. And that's frightening. That's absolutely frightening to see that. So obviously I'm not the only one. And so in the time frame of 2001, while I'm watching this, it might be towards the end of 2000, whatever it was, and I'm just sitting there, it's like, I can't believe that that's going on. Like Hollywood I understand, like maybe there's a church or whatever here and there, and some people, but Hollywood's doing this? What? And remember, I was less than a full year awake from my coma when I'm watching this. I still have the subarachnoid hemorrhage in the frontal lobe of my brain, extremely there at that time. And I'm dealing with my headaches and migraines. The cognitive disorders and memory deficits, I haven't learned these words yet, but I have all these memories, and I'm looking at this documentary, and I'm just, so then the movie comes on. And I watch, and I was just, wow. Well, it was frightening, because, okay, I haven't seen that before. I haven't ever seen where that was a thing, where those situations were as they were. Reminded me of a few things in reference to my biological sister. I will acknowledge that. As far as the female child in that particular movie, and it was, so I couldn't sleep with the lights off because I was having an issue with everything. It was as it was. It was one of those, I have all these memories and I have no way to verbalize them as to what I've seen, what I've known. My biological sister, mind you, during those meetings was like, that'll be fun, it'll be great, this'll be awesome. And I was the one who took the stand against it. So where I was like, no, my biological sister was like, this'll be fun, this'll be great, we'll be all whatever. And it's like, no, you have absolutely no common sense. And so she wanted, where she was excited, I was not. And so it was a back and forth. So in the state of Texas, I'd warned people, we don't get along. Anything I do, she tries to whatever in those references, and she encourages in the realistically, not satanic, because there's Satanism, which has a connotation which is different in comparison to the proverbial aspects as to the biblical portions. And so she's doing that sort of stuff, and it's one of those, no, this is not, well, everybody wanted to listen to Patricia in comparison to listen to me. And it was one of those, if you get I don't know what's wrong with you at this point. At some point in time, you are going to have to acknowledge that Patricia knows nothing. She hasn't studied anything by that point in time. She didn't even want to go to Sunday school. She would actually fight against going to Sunday school in comparison to me. So we were the complete opposites in every capacity. When it came to my confirmation classes, She did stuff to try to cause needless problems, and I wasn't having any of it. So each and every time, it was one of those, I'm not willing to deal with you. I'm not going to allow you. This is not a game. And so, as I've already gone over in prior official YouTube videos of mine, again, share the link of my official YouTube videos, as well as like my official YouTube videos, hopefully. If you're going to leave a comment regarding my recordings, which is in that reference of my official YouTube videos, make sure to use etiquette and respect. Subscribe to my official YouTube channel and go to my website, www.susanmeling.com. However, I've gone over these factors before. And each and every time she tried, and it was one of those, no, you don't understand. You just aren't what you think you are when it comes to my biological sister. It was a constant thing. So in Texas, a bunch of people tried to say, oh, it's just a sibling rivalry. Except it's not. It is a sibling rivalry, and yet it is not a sibling rivalry. It is far more than that. She wants to play games and she doesn't care about any of you. And she'll prove that. She will prove that not only does she not care about any of you, she will also prove as to what I have dealt with since I was a child. She will prove to you what I dealt with as a teenager. She will prove that to you. But by the time she proves that to you, you will have had all sorts of misfortunes, all because of her. Do not blame me for what her choices have been. Do not bother me as far as what your choices were in regards of what she lied to you about. Do not, because I will not have sympathy for you. Because you will have had all sorts of warnings, and you will have made whatever choices you made. That is something that you will have to deal with. And if you are not willing to ask me in genuine truth for my forgiveness, that's your choice. If you are going to remain the way that she has been, that is your choice. I will not be a part of it because I will not tolerate it. And so now in 2022, everybody has their own experiences as far as that's concerned. Is as it is. So with that starting point, which how does it lead into this next section? Well, because of where I was born and raised. And so people that I knew at Old Town Presbyterian Church, when it came to one particular birthday, I was asked, what type of music did I want as far as cassette tapes? So taking it back way back in time to when it was cassette tapes, not CDs, not iPods, not even YouTube, cassettes. Not as far back, though there were records in the house that I grew up in, and there were 8-track tapes in the house that I grew up in, but cassettes, cassette tapes. And I tell them, Snoop Dogg, Ice-T, Ice Cube, and go into a few, and they're like, why would you ever have that enjoyment of a music? And I get Ace of Base as a cassette tape, and Green Day Dookie. Green Day, okay. I did like some of their, I especially like some of their later stuff after that, far more so. I did. And so, you know, I mean, the irony of I Saw the Sign in a different capacity, mainly in regards of my Medal of Honor art project, I guess is what I can make the joke about if I saw the sign, because it's actually a sign. It's a symbol, but you know, nonetheless, there you go. Very different, obviously, in each capacity, nonetheless, still the truth. And so, those types of situations, those types of what have you. And my biological sister and her types of people in the year 2007 and 2008, they were so excited because of 44, who became 44, I should say, President Barack Obama. Oh, we're gonna vote for the first black president, and yay! Except you're a bigot. I call people out in the state of Texas, looking as I do, in the state of Texas, call them out for being racists and bigots. To their face, in person, face to face in person. There was only a table between my biological sister and I, about 4.5, 5 feet apart, and I called her a racist because she tried to claim that just because, maybe you can find some similarities, just because she was only gonna vote for Barack Obama, not because of his policies, but only because he is African American, she didn't see how she was a racist. I didn't see how she couldn't see how she was a racist. So then instead of that, my biological sister then points out how my skin looks and doesn't understand how I couldn't vote for 44. I went over because of what I told everybody at the table I knew he was going to become president of the United States of America. I knew that I knew it. I was still going to vote for McCain and Palin. However, and I did. However, I didn't understand what my skin and my hair had anything to do with why my biological sister didn't want to acknowledge how she was being a racist and bigot in regards of voting for 44 just because he was an African American. And her excuse was, you should just look at yourself and see why you should vote for him. Except how I physically look has nothing to do with his policies. I'm letting you know this is what's going to occur. I'm letting you know that this is how it's going to go. I'm letting you know that I'm going to do what I can, and hopefully at some point in time, there'll be enough people that believe, because most likely of the amount of proof of, as far as clarifications and verifications. And yeah, I don't have problems discussing things, but I will point out these verifications and clarifications regarding a few situations. So make sure, you can back it up, because I'm letting you know, to me, you sound as a bigot and a racist because of what you are claiming in reference to why you're voting for 44. I don't care that he's African American. Not that I don't care in regards of more along the lines of medicinal purposes regarding the healthcare aspects, because there are differences per ethnic background. There is that proven scientific fact. However, his ethnic background has nothing to do with why you think certain things. So what is it in your thought process as far as the policies? And if you take in consideration, and this is my opinion, what the average pop culture is and or was by that point in time, as to what people thought or believe or whatever it is regarding the African American background, I would not be surprised for those who would actually know those particulars if they were capable to see that in reference to individuals who voted for 44. So whatever they, in whichever capacity of, whatever their particular viewpoint as to whatever their version of what they consider as a stereotype, I would not be surprised if within a 4 to 8 year time frame, at some point it started to actually show that particular aspect of in the comparison. I did not deny that I'm sure that he has intellect. I'm sure that he is capable to have quite a few discussions. I'm sure that he has whatever as far as several factors. However, just because of his skin tone, because they kept bringing up black, which my viewpoint of what black is very different. When you say a black person in a discussion with me, I am not thinking of an African American. That goes to having been born and raised in New Jersey and the aspects as to Old Tedder Presbyterian Church grounds. That is black to me in comparison to an African American. Though, in my opinion, it's kind of similar in a different capacity. So there's Elon Musk, okay? And I have given him the nickname of E equals MC squared. The reason why I say the E equals MC squared in comparison to Elon Musk is because, in my opinion, with him and his work regarding SpaceX and a few other factors, if you want people to actually be intelligent and actually assist with the progress that would lead towards betterment, yes, okay, apparently he has, from a YouTube video I had listened to, he has Asperger's. So I can understand, especially with that particular intellect level, being capable to do certain things, that you'd want a shortened version because of having that background. Similar to Mr. Bezos in reference to Blue Origin and Amazon, you'd want a certain shortened version, but because of their backgrounds intellectually, as far as their colleges, their work, their experiences, there are those differences as to what is a shortened acronym or what have you in comparison to individuals who don't have that background, individuals who don't have that experience. So in a different reference, I have said I had a head injury. Well, in the scientific community, they call it, or medicinal community, they call it now a TBI. So when I've had to explain to people, and it's not as though they ever had explained to me the TBI portion, but in the general public who don't have a MD or don't have the study of in that particular capacity, it doesn't make sense to me, and it hasn't made sense to me, why they would prefer me to say, and I've actually had this in a discussion, a few actually, in the years of 2009 through 2013, well, why would I explain it as a TBI to you? You don't even know what it is. So if you want to try to go off of what people who actually have the degree, while you want to try to explain certain things as far as college, and you want to try to utilize what somebody else in those capacities of, so I'll give the example of Neil deGrasse, as far as Neil deGrasse Tyson, yeah, he can do the shortened whatever because of the astrophysicist background, but as he has brought forward in obvious aspects, the clarifications, it's not the same, but you have like Bill Nye the Science Guy, and he did certain things that actually show and explain those particular factors in comparison to like YOLO, and then having to learn what YOLO means. Well, that's kind of when you take in consideration various aspects of making attempts, or in some references trying, to shorten things because of the length of time. And doing those little acronyms for people who don't actually have that particular aspect. So the difference of the YOLO, or you only live once, well, no, you don't. No, you don't. You don't live just one time. Whether you believe in reincarnation or not, when you take in consideration technology, how many people are capable to bring that up? And that's how you don't YOLO, just for clarification. But then again, I have the background that I have. I have my childhood experiences and my teenager experiences and my knowledge thereof and my understanding thereof and my comprehension thereof and the comparisons. And so when you take in consideration whatever acronym aspects, well, you're dumbing people down in comparison. And this is my opinion. This is why when people would say LOL, when talking, literally when having a discussion with me, there were people who would say LOL. What is LOL? And without actually laughing, they said, literally, they explained that LOL meant laughing out loud, though they weren't laughing. It was frightening because this happened from around 2005 that I noticed this to about 2012, where people in the state of Texas were literally verbatim saying LOL without a smile on their face, without laughing at all. And I didn't understand. Then by those people's standards, those people actually had the nerve to claim that I was weird. So I'll give an example. In the year of 2006, while volunteering at 9 Lives bookstore, or maybe it was towards the end of the year in 2006. When I was volunteering at 9 Lives bookstore, I was talking with the guy who was working there, that was Daniel, and then another guy who was working there as far as the finance area, and that was Ken, and then Michael, who had, whatever as far as that was concerned. We were all talking. And then Jeffrey Kirkendall Jr., also known as Cactus Jack, regarding the 151 Road Warrior situation. He got the nickname of Cactus Jack because in ROTC, or Reserve Officer Training Corps at UTSA, he had gone in the field, landed on a patch of cactus, and he threw a temper tantrum because all the guys called him Cactus Jack. Well, that's an Army thing. That's not just an Army thing. That's a college thing. That's a elementary school thing. That's an any place situation. If you don't define yourself, someone will. So, and even if you do define yourself, someone will try certain aspects in comparison, and depending who you are, if you are in that regards of Cactus Jack, well, they'll attempt to make that whatever in comparison to someone such as myself, where you could try, except I'll prove you wrong. I will prove myself to who I am, because what is the term for a donkey? A jackass is the answer in this lecture for the clarification. So, he, meaning Cactus Jack, or Jeffrey Kirkendall Jr., in the back area, while the crazy cat people, as far as the cat sanctuary, were really getting ramped up as far as those problems, where the psychic fair situations were starting to have issues, the actual bookstore employees and volunteers were having issues. They didn't have a problem with the psychic fair. They had a problem with the crazy cat people, because just the crazy cat people wanted to try to claim that just because of the psychic fair, as far as this Mandarin sort of viewpoint, that they should be fine with cats. And it was, no, just because you have whatever viewpoint of, and then there's the claim that cats know their boundaries. No, they don't. Anybody who's actually had a cat knows that unless you train that cat like a dog, then they're going to do certain things. Dogs actually respect boundaries in comparison. Dogs naturally do that as well. In comparison, dogs are far more emotional connected They also are more protective than any cat would be. And they just are better, in my opinion. They actually not only protect boundaries, but they also set boundaries. Unlike cats. Domesticated cats do not do that. That's the facts. Domesticated cats do not respect boundaries, but they want you to not, they're kind of like the left, in my opinion, the liberal left. They set the boundaries for themselves, but they don't respect your boundaries. They want you to respect their boundaries though, but they don't. And so when they want to, whatever, as far as play, they go and claw you and bite you in comparison to what dogs do. Dogs are playful, they'll rub up against you, they'll, not do what domesticated cats do. Domesticated cats, I have not ever understood why anybody has liked domesticated cats at all, unless they act the way dogs do. That's the only way that I like domesticated cats, is if they act like dogs. I actually trained cats to act like dogs. I did. I had 2 cats that would actually walk into the shower, and I would give them an actual shower, clean them up, and then send them out. Wasn't a big deal. They acted like dogs. They didn't jump on the counters. They knew better. And it wouldn't matter if I was opening tuna cans to make tuna casserole, for example. They would not jump on the counters. They would sit like a dog at my feet, look up at me, and my dog Ganesh would sit right next to them and ooh, ooh. It was as far as that's concerned. However, in those particular references, I like cats that act like dogs. That, in human form. Because in that reference, they still do the cat stuff, as far as the domesticated cats, for that metaphor. Because if they don't get their way, they still go and revert back to the domesticated cat version in comparison to the actual domesticated cats that were taught to act like a dog. It's personal opinion. It's a personal opinion. Whatever proof there is of that is whatever proof there is of that. Otherwise, I just prefer dogs, and there are no people who can truthfully say that dogs don't respect boundaries. Dogs very much do respect boundaries, and dogs actually set boundaries, because don't pretend a dog growling at you isn't letting you know that you're crossing a boundary. That is very evident. You might not see the physical boundary, but that dog does. And so that dog is setting that boundary, and if you want to get close to that dog, you are going to do things the way that dog lets you know to do it. Because otherwise, don't be surprised how that dog responds. My opinion, though, for that metaphor. So, in those particular references, we're in the back. Daniel and Ken and Michael and I are talking. Cactus Jackass walks in with Jamie Robles, and they're doing what they can to get away from the crazy cat people, because the cat sanctuary was hoarding in all of these other cats, as far as quite a few things. The store cats actually got sick because of the crazy cat people stuff. And it's like, what is wrong with you? Like, how do you not see this? Well, whatever the situations were in reference to Suzanne Farnsworth and those other factors regarding those crazy cat people, because that's just how they are. In my opinion, proof is whatever the proof is. So Daniel, Ken, Michael, and I, we were joking about whatever we were joking about, and it was some dry sense of humor thing, as per normal at that point in time, or intellectual jokes. And Cactus Jack and Jamie Robles, or Jeffrey Kirkendall and Jamie Robles, Jeffrey Kirkendall Jr. and Jamie Robles, they make a pop culture reference to what we are discussing. And then both of them say LOL. And Daniel, Ken, and Michael just kind of, whereas I step forward and I'm like, excuse me, what does that mean? And Daniel goes, oh, Susan, don't you know what that means? Well, I wouldn't have asked if I knew. And so the three of them were just a bit confused. And so Jeffrey Kirkendall Jr., Cactus Jack, had said, it means laughing out loud. Duh. But you're not laughing. What, I don't understand. Why are you describing, if it's funny, what you should be doing if it's actually funny? We were laughing. We were having a good time. We were enjoying ourselves. And then you came back here where we are doing our stuff, and you interject yourself with whatever, I don't even know, and then you want to describe in an acronym how do you even get to that point? Well, I'm not on social media at this point in time. I'm not doing that in the same, I mean, I have in some ways, just not like Facebook, not Twitter, whatever, in those capacities. I think maybe a little bit later I might have gotten one of those MySpace things, but I was doing a lot of other stuff, so, and I still had a subarachnoid hemorrhage in the frontal lobe of my brain at that time, so, you know, whatever as far as it is. And this guy, he's laughing at the fact that I'm confused about the LOL. Just stand there and he's like, don't you see how funny it is? LOL. No, I don't. I don't see how any of that is funny, to be quite honest with you. I don't understand how you could stand in front of me and actually literally say the letters LOL with a straight face and not actually even have a smile on your face, which is why it's a straight face, and actually there's not anything. What is wrong with you? And it was as it was. Well, this is the same individual regarding the Mad Max Alamo Draft House situation, the 151 Road Warrior. I explained this in my journal blog, The Ornery PSA, on my website, www.susanmealing.com. Because of my dry sense of humor, I can acknowledge, yes, the legal aspect of what the lawyer had brought forward in the courtroom about the e-tool. Yeah, okay, that's funny, but you have to understand the legal aspect, not in reference to the situation itself, but the way it was presented, because I cannot be the only person who has ever heard about certain court cases and the way the attorney had presented whatever definitive aspects when before the judge. I cannot be, and whether they agreed with one side or the other, it doesn't matter. I would guesstimate there are plenty of attorneys who could be like, you know, I really don't agree with A, B, C, D, E, F, G. However, that's one way to put it. You know, I mean, whether you're a DA or a defense attorney, whatever it is, you have to, I cannot be the only one who has ever, and I did this as a child because I liked PBS and C-SPAN. So I'll just leave that at that. I also was born and raised in New Jersey. There's a couple of lawyers. There's a few law firms. Yeah, there's also a couple of schools in the tri-state area that have, you know, that. It's a few things, so, you know, it's a very different sense of humor. obviously. And so it's one of those, in that capacity of finding the silver lining regarding my books, and you can go to my website, www.susanmealing.com, it's in that particular reference where, I fully disagree with that, though you have to give credit in regards of that attorney, because that actually is kind of funny, but there's all these other factors that should be taken into consideration and not denying it. So I've explained and verified certain other things where I could, and others can clarify the details in those particular references that I took a stand against, because when I found out certain things, I made attempts to be like, here, there's this, like, you wanna, here, who do I speak with? I don't know. Okay, well, I'll just go and author and compile Finding A and Finding the Silver Lining and register it with the Library of Congress, and they can... There's got to be an attorney somewhere in the Library of Congress. They at minimum had to have attorneys to create the Library of Congress, so there's got to be someone somewhere. That was my thought process, by the way. Here's all this stuff. I don't know what else to do. There's got to be an attorney or a law firm somewhere that could possibly do edit it. And I've made attempts as far as this is concerned in so many ways. So here you go. It's in DC, so there's probably an attorney somewhere, because I know that in order to create Senate and Congress, oh hey, it's called the Library of Congress, there were attorneys involved. So there has to be a minimum of one somewhere. I don't want to be rude, I don't want to overstep my bounds, but possibly there could be 5. I could be overshooting that and there's only 2, but I don't know. I don't want to assume. I don't want to. However, I was born and raised in New Jersey, and growing up in the tri-state area, I know for a fact, in order for it to be a law firm, there's usually more than one attorney. I know that. Nonetheless, so, as far as that was concerned, this actually happened, for another reference before I go further. So, Cactus Jack, also known as Jeffrey Kirkendall Jr., he would do these reenacting things. He would, and I can understand, because I was born and raised in New Jersey, you got colonial actors, as far as that's concerned. You have, so it's one of those, yeah, so his thing, he didn't think ever in those years that I would ever know what a historical reenactor was. And it's like, I explained to him, I grew up going to Old Tenet Presbyterian Church. During certain parts of the year, we actually would do this. I mean, we had this thing called a drive-through nativity. I'm fairly certain that's probably along the same lines. And he was like, no, that's not the same as historical reenacting. I was like, okay, well, how about like each Palm Sunday and Easter Sunday, we would have a official trained bagpipe player who would dress in traditional Scottish garb and actually play the bagpipes of Amazing Grace as the congregants would walk up from Old Scots, like Scottish, Hall, and then there'd be the church service, and then after the church service, this Scottish dressed bagpipe player would play Amazing Grace as the congregants walked back down to Old Scots Hall. Scottish. Because it was Scottish, if I remember, it was a Scottish rites that had been part of the formation of Old Tenet Presbyterian Church. It's like, I don't understand how you are missing that. And he was like, no, that's not historical reenactment. I disagree. Then I gave the example, we would go to Old Scots burial ground, and the colonial reenactors would be dressed in the colonial reenactment garb. And I explained my biological mother was a part of the SCA. I don't know what SCA is, but I have a feeling it's probably along these lines. His response was, no, that's not historical reenacting. Even though we were going to the first, there's the Battle of Monmouth Field. I gave all these, no, you don't know what reenacting is for historical anything. New Jersey is kind of one of the original 13 states in the original colonies. I think we might have an idea. His response, literally, no, that's not historical reenacting. Okay, I gotta know, what would you think is actually historical reenacting? His response was, well, World War II. So I asked, did you know that there's history before World War II at all? And he was like, yeah, but that's not historical reenacting. And so I did so much to maintain my self-control. There were people in the Austin area in 2010 and 2011 who were like, we want to know what you were like before you had a drink. No, you don't. No. I was a dick. I mean, I was still calm, but I was quicker to pop off with my words in comparison, and my words hurt people's feelings. Mainly because I was, if you've ever met anybody who's ever been born and raised in New Jersey, they don't say words to describe people that are fluffy. They kind of use a lot of swear words. Like, for example, they usually say, I swear, and then they go and say a bunch of words that you consider as swear words in comparison to people in New Jersey who start with, I swear. Which I thought it would alleviate because, of that type of sarcasm and humor. Apparently that didn't work, Apparently I was, called whatever, and it's like, yeah. And you call me stupid because I didn't graduate basic training? I'm literally telling you that in New Jersey, we literally say, I swear, before whatever. I don't know what's wrong with you, but okay. Maybe it's because of the after effects from my head injury on Palm Sunday in 2000, or maybe it's because of the after effects from my subarachnoid hemorrhage in the frontal lobe of my brain. By that time, I had also earned my 26 scuba diving certifications, and as far as that's concerned, it's like, I don't know, maybe I'm just, I don't know. I don't know what my problem is, other than you. So, and then they thought I was being rude for saying that, and it was one of those, except you are a problem. So if you wouldn't be a problem, I wouldn't call you that. So it didn't matter what I said, because it was one of those, that's not even mean. Like, realistically, it's not mean at all. For all of you people who claim, oh, I know how people are from New Jersey. Yeah, no, that's not mean. No. It starts out with your mama. When if you know how people are, if you truly knew, I'm going to clarify this. This is 2022. I'm going to clarify this. If you want to, in certain references, if you want to think that whatever words a New Jerseyan says are mean, if they don't start out with yo mama, you really don't. But see, then that kind of backfires too, because certain New Jerseyans will be like, well, here, let me actually give you some details. If you want to go into that, no. Let me help you with that, okay? No. So there's the ornery PSA on my website, www.susanbeeling.com. And that is as it is. This is one of those, yeah, okay. So, I mean, and I actually told my son this, I think it was 2016 or 2017. I said, yeah, you know, if anybody ever tries a your mama joke, I let you know, I have acknowledged certain things about who I am. And so they can't say anything in truth that would be all that whatever, so you don't really need to get upset unless you know you believe them in comparison to your mom. So, you know, but that would be on you. You better, you know, whatever, be smarter in comparison and you know, whatever. Same thing with my daughter, although I didn't get to have that discussion. It's one of those, okay, well, you know, it is as it is. So this historical reenacting, whatever, go and see this stuff, and he was into the historical reenacting, not only regarding World War II, which he tried to explain to me that the historical reenacting in World War II aspects where he played a German, I didn't understand why he needed authentic gear. My personal opinion was as it was. Same thing as far as him and his concern regarding Russian gear. And I, again, didn't understand why he would want authentic Russian gear. Now, I will say, in comparison to the World War II aspect of the German gear, I didn't know if the Russians were still utilizing some of those factors. And his response was, oh, well, it's no big deal. I said, except if you, so remember at that point, you know, it's 2008, remember there are the factors of this situation called the Dress Blues and the Chief Warrant Officer 3 and you know, the JCPenney issue, as far as that's concerned. And so his response was, oh, he thought the Russians would actually look kindly upon him. And I told him, I don't believe you. I don't know. I mean, you know, that's a different form, in my opinion, that's a different form of bigotry. And he tried to say that he was strong like a Russian, and I was like, yeah, maybe like a white Russian. And he was like, what's that supposed to mean? And I was like, you know, because you read things on a piece of paper, and most pieces of paper are white. I mean, sure, there are pieces of paper like construction paper that have different color, but I'm gonna call you a white Russian because, you know, pieces of paper are usually white. Even on the internet, some pages are white too, and they're actually called pages. I thought it was a funny joke. But I'm also a dork, so of course I'd find that funny. And he didn't think it was funny. He actually wanted to try to claim that he tried to actually claim that the entire state, or as he said the state of Russia. And I was like, and we were outside at this World War II reenacting situation. And I literally, outside, I don't know. Just in case lightning comes out of the sky, I'm gonna be over here. I don't know about that, I don't know. I'm not the smartest crayon in the toolbox, but I don't know, and I don't believe you that Russians will, and I also don't think it's a state, I'm fairly certain it's a country. And so he was like, it's all the same. And it's like, you know, so I just take a few steps back further. I'm like, come on, James and Lydia, let's go over here. No. I don't know nowhere near over there. And so, yeah, his response was, no. Russians, or he said Ruskies or Rusties or something. And I'm like, I don't know. I've known a few Russians in my life. And he was like, oh yeah, what type of Russians? And I'm like, from Russia? What other type of Russian is there? I mean, other than, it's in your ethnic background. Other than that, I don't know what other type of Russian you're thinking of. And he's just like, well, you've got Russian in you. And it's like, yeah, I also am half Chinese. And I got a bunch of other ethnic backgrounds too. But I'm not from Russia. I was born in New Jersey. Duh. I don't know what level of stupidity you gotta be to not understand that. So I'm straight out of New Jersey. I'm not, I don't know what's wrong with you, or just, I don't know. Although the irony is, at my Sweet 16 during the event, and this is literally only figured out now in 2022, I had walked around the grounds and I went on a different version of a vision quest. Because there's different types. And so I had put a blindfold over my own eyes. And it wasn't a physical blindfold, but I know how to do certain things energetically. And so I walk out from Neff Chapel, and I can't remember certain specifics as far as there were multiple questions that I was asking in that particular vision quest. And so I walk all the way, so I know where I walked through, but I have no idea how I got to where I got to, because the requirement was that I would touch a physical stone that would catch my attention. Well, if you know the grounds at Old Tenet Presbyterian Church, you know that there are plenty. So I walk out from Neff Chapel, walk across the parking lot without bumping into a vehicle, I don't know how. Wherever I walked around, and if I remember correctly, it's the McDonald mausoleum that I had been near. But if you see the markers out there, there are plenty that are taller than the flat ones. And I didn't even feel them underneath my feet. And so I walk around and then I touch a stone and I have a vision, and it was kind of the irony in regards of a sword. And then there was a hammer, and then there was this crescent shaped sort of thing in my vision. And I was like, that doesn't make any sense to me. I don't understand this. And so I continue on my vision quest, and there's a few other things that occur, and I see these things, and it's just, this doesn't make sense. I don't understand the symbolic aspects, because, granted, I was a sophomore in high school, but certain symbolism I didn't understand. It's like, why would that make, that just doesn't, I don't understand. Well, irony later, there's that. And it's not the exact same symbols that I saw, but there are certain similarities. And so I disagreed. I took a whole bunch of stands in regards of this is not considered acceptable. And so he had been informed regarding Cactus Jack, also known as Jeffrey Kirkendall Jr., he had been informed as to what I dealt with at Excalibur Fair. And he was just, oh, well, that's a funny prank. It's a funny joke. I said, but it's not. I don't find anything funny about that at all. There's nothing funny that, these males jumped out of these trees dressed up in these troll uniform or whatever they were. And, there's nothing funny about that at all. Regarding, the weapons that were in their hands at all. There wasn't anything funny to me. I don't know how anybody can find that funny. I can find it funny, in my opinion, after I put my hands up and I was ready to throw down and then didn't back off while they had their weapons the way they did. I was like, I'm not playing with you. And so when they realized I didn't know certain things, because it took one of the other males in the group to realize, I didn't know that they were doing that. He realized that I hadn't ever been a part of that before, that it was because I said something, I don't know what I said, that had triggered him. And he was like, have you ever been to one of these? And I said, no. And he was like, so you haven't ever been to a Renaissance fair? No. What would make you think I had? And he said, well, you're dressed in an outfit. Just because I like my outfit doesn't translate to me having any knowledge of that. What is wrong with you people? And I've got my fists up. I'm ready. It did not matter that one of them had what he called was a sword. And it didn't matter as far as the other weapon. I was like, no, this isn't cool. I don't understand why you would do this. I'm a female walking around by myself. What is wrong with you? And, that male was one of the first ones to throw the weapons at my feet. And it's like, that's smart for you. Sucks for your friends. Sucks for that, because if they don't, and so one by one, they started throwing their weapons down, and they're like, okay, we didn't know. And it's like, I'm not playing with you. Just because I was at a Renaissance fair doesn't translate to that whatever stereotype. And anybody in regards of, for example, what is supposed to be considered the adult consenting lifestyle, just because I was involved with that doesn't translate to the same way of whatever your opinion is. That also lets you know that sort of bigotry in that different capacity. Because just because you might have whatever opinion you have in your thoughts, I am not a stereotype. So there's that factor as well. So similarly regarding Temple of Flash and having been in the poster for one aspect, which I wasn't at any, once my performance was done regarding on stage, as far as that 3-part whatever, literally less than 45 minutes later, I was out the door. I was gone. I was not a part of that at all. So I didn't even learn that there were after parties to that until 2012. But because of all of my responsibilities during that time frame, I had other stuff to do that was more important to me. So I don't know in regards of whatever capacities of, but that's on those capacities in comparison. So I don't know what the stereotype is, but I don't know how much clearer I have to make it that I'm not a stereotype. And so in those particular factors of whatever underground stuff that I obviously wouldn't know, that's something that you would need to take in consideration as to a big difference in those capacities of, because I have the proof. Now, additionally, as many times as I was volunteering at Club Sapphire, of course, they would have to check me in each and every time because of the logistics. So yeah, I've been checked in as many times as I had volunteered. Usually it was Friday and Saturday, but that meant I was usually going and checking on the front staff because in the office area, they always were dealing with whatever people were checking in. Additionally, they had to be directly near the phone just in case, whether a phone call or to make a phone call. So yeah, I'd make sure that if they needed something from whatever food was there and or drinks, I'd go pick that up. Yeah, now and compared, here's the irony is to the backwards aspect. In the state of Texas, they didn't have the customization as far as the areas that were waxed. And now the opposite in regards to Club Sapphire, I'm growing my hair out It's still the same color-ish, but at night, yeah, okay, or in certain lighting, it would probably be fairly similar to the hair color and whatever. Nonetheless, it doesn't change the fact that just because of whatever the themes were, does not mean that I partook. I actually didn't. There's not really any point in time that I was a part of, but I was there. So, okay, made sure that the paperwork was taken care of in the front, so that way people could actually fill out the forms. Took care of the Keurig area, took care of the candies, and as far as the M&Ms and the machine, as far as that was concerned. Same thing in regards of the Lifesaver mints. Same thing in regards of the Keurig little spinny doohickey mabob. In the back area regarding the dance floor, I'd go and check on the bartenders, and while they were doing whatever, I usually refilled the different soda cans, so that way they didn't have to do that. Same thing with going and getting the ice taken care of. I usually went with to go pick up the ice to begin with, and then, refill the little tub of ice, so that way, while they were mixing drinks, that was something that they didn't have to worry about. I'd check on the DJ and whoever was with the DJ if they needed something to drink, something to eat, whatever it was as far as I was concerned. In the back, I'd usually do, or the very back, I should clarify, I'd do security walks, making sure that unattached males weren't being, and then I'd make sure that the towels were rolled up and put in the bookshelf area as far as that was concerned, or I'd bag up the different used towels and tie them off, or combine the bags, throw them in the corner area and do it that way. And usually I compacted it. That's actually funny. So Ray had told me that one day there was a guy who would come and pick up the bags of the used towels. And the guy had asked Ray, you gotta have, and he was looking at Ray apparently, and Ray's a big guy, and he was like, who do you have packing these bags? Because, how I don't even know what the guy looks as far as, loading up the bags to take them to be cleaned and stuff like that. And Ray was like, why? What's the problem? And he's like, I don't know how you even fit this many towels into this one bag and all this stuff and whatever. And so in my defense, I don't know if it's really in defense, but whatever, it was because of the location and making sure that the exit was clear. So that's, the more smaller bags, of course, the easier it is to fall down. Well, the more compacted, that was my thought process. It was just easier. And so the guy apparently told Ray, who, like, you're whatever, you and I, we can talk about this, it is what it is, can you not, like, I know you got your construction company, but can you, like, not go and fill it like like this concrete or whatever? And Ray said he started laughing. And as I'm sitting there listening, and I'm like, well, what's so funny? I didn't understand what's going on. And he goes, well, you do know who packs those bags that way. I was like, yeah, I do that. So what? I don't understand. What's the big deal? And he's like, okay, so you pack the bags? Yeah. And he goes, and then you stack the bags? Uh-huh. And he's like, so yeah, I explained to him that you'd be surprised who actually would do it. And Ray had said whoever the guy was like, well, who is it? And Ray goes, so it's a female who is about 5'4", 5'5". And, she's about this size in comparison to, Ray. And the guy was like, I don't believe you that a little female or a little girl could do something like that. And he's like, yeah, no, I've watched her do it. I can tell you, no, don't let her size fool you. She's a lot stronger than she looks. She's tiny. She can pack a punch, and apparently she can pack those bags. Don't know how she does it. Even, I've tried, I don't know how she gets it, this, whatever, but she does whatever. And he's like, well, I have a bad back, can you make sure? It's not that heavy. Like, I thought that I was gonna pick up this bag and it was gonna be like, you know, maybe 20 pounds and pick it up and it's like 150. And he's like, yeah, it weighs more than she does. Yeah. And the guy was like, what? And he's like, yeah, I don't think she even weighs 120 pounds. He was correct. And so it's like, I don't know how she does it, but she does what she does. And it's just like, well, you know. And so Ray was like, so you have to not pack it as heavy. And I was like, well, what do I do in regards of when the events are larger? You know, I mean, you know, you've got the emergency exit there. I've got you know, I know that you can only do so much stuff with the space, but, you know, how do I make sure that if there's ever an emergency, that people are capable to get to that? You know, and I didn't really go into how, you know, as far as New Jersey, but more so New York City. It's like, if there's ever a panic, that's kind of what I was packing it that way for. So that way they didn't have those issues. And so it was kind of, we had to figure whatever, well now in 2022, after COVID began in 2020, I mean, and then I was also in the state of Texas in comparison to Washington State, there is that, so there's a difference in that capacity. Nonetheless, it is one of those situations where it's like, yeah, you know, I'm looking at security, you know, because you got people that, you know, if there's ever an emergency, there's only 2 exits in this back area. One is that emergency exit, and 2, the Ruby room door, and that's it. And Ray was like, I didn't really think about that. It's like, yeah, that's all you got. You don't have any other exit areas because that one area is locked, and that's the closet. And so in the back, you've only got 2 exits, and, you know, just in case sort of thing, you know. And he was like, yeah, I'll talk with the guy about that, because I didn't really think of it. And it's like, yeah, I mean, if maybe afterwards you kind of get extra bags as far as, and then kind of dump it out and half sort of thing. But, you know, the situations in those particular references, the battery situation, just gotta fix that apparently real quick, so that way I don't have to do that. If it'll actually charge, that would be great. Hold on. So it is one of those situations in reference to how those factors are. And so in those references, the reality is that had to be done. And so fast forward in regards of the situations as to not being a part of stereotypes, because there is how all of that correlates. That's why my official YouTube videos, again, please like and subscribe to my official YouTube channel, because of actually believing in information regarding lecturing. So, you know, I know that some people have their opinions regarding things, but this is why you actually have to have this. This goes back to the difference between LOL and TBI as far as actual explanations, such as head injury in comparison. So those types of people that have their opinion, I mean, I don't know what degree they have, but you know, that specialty regarding 26 scuba diving certifications compared to just open water, or just an instructor that has, you know, 5 or 6 certifications as far as specialties. This is the difference as well as. So in regards of where I was born and raised, as far as not being stereotypical, correlating to 44 and those people, as far as those types that prefer that shortened stuff and then wonder why they don't have the intellect or the understanding from the knowledge because they don't have the knowledge to begin with. This is where that goes into, because this is why. This is literally why, in reference to those issues as far as having plugged in the cord on purpose, but those types of people who don't have the intellect in regards of would be upset in those capacities because you need to actually have those lectures. Because if you don't have the knowledge for the starting point to bring everything around, then you lose out. And you don't want to lose out, especially as many people claim as far as that YOLO. So, in reference to, I had watched a Fox News Outnumbered broadcast on YouTube. And so those types of people, in reference to those who were proud to vote for 44, well, I had created this polling where I thought it would be great because I just listened to Harris Faulkner and Jebediah Smith and the Outnumbered cast. I didn't actually look at them. Unlike in regards of YouTube, mainly because there's the difference between the size of a television screen compared to the size of what watched on. And so additionally, because of everything else I was working on, because again, unlike some people, I have this capacity to multitask. And so unlike some people where they think a certain way, that's kind of their problem. They think a certain way and they don't know how to actually expand that. And so when people make attempts, such as this lecture, to actually do so, those types of people who have, attention spans the length of a fruit fly, sometimes they have a bit of a temper tantrum. They don't think because they get bored and they don't want to pay attention, and yet they need to, and this is why their intellect is at what level it is. Goes back to that pop culture thing. So in reference to the 44 reference and certain people that want to only view things a certain way, that goes to that intellect and that shortened attention span, and those that, they feel, even in regards of certain types that feel that their background, they don't need it, but if they don't have the background themselves, then they actually do need it. That's the thing. If their experiences are not something that is actually in their background, then they actually, it goes to those types in the early 2000s, those males that had issues actually accepting females who had intellect aspects such as the PhD levels and stuff like that, where they had problems because of their own internal issues of their own bigotry or sexism in that regard, where a female actually explaining something, they had their personal, I call it small penis syndrome. Internal penis so small. That's what I call it. But there's probably a psychological term that would be different in those capacities. So anyway, I had, to bring all that together because common sense. So, you have to reread certain things if you don't have a background, so that way you can actually understand, well, instead of wasting time, I know better in comparison to some people who think they know better. So there's that. That's why I plugged in the charging cord off the bat in comparison. See, I have this knowledge of how things are actually supposed to be in comparison to those people who don't. So, when I know what I'm going to bring forward in a lecture, and I know that it needs to be done a certain way, and again, I didn't ever allow anyone to be a part of certain things, I know how things are supposed to go, and I also know how I'm going to present it in my lecture, because I know why. I have the background. I have the knowledge, I have the understanding, and I have the comprehension. So if you actually want to get education in those references, you wouldn't cause needless problems the way children would do, especially if you're a biological adult. Because a biological adult that would have maturity wouldn't do that. But that's neither here nor there, literally or figuratively. So, in those references, because if you go and re-listen to this official YouTube video of mine, again, any recording I create is an official YouTube video of mine for my choice as far as how I will present it. As far as my official YouTube channel, again, subscribe and go to my website, www.susanmeeling.com, for those references regarding my personal background as far as my knowledge and my understanding and my comprehension in comparison to certain individuals and what they thought. The Ornery PSA, my journal blog updates from the year 2019 and onward, might hypothetically bring that into a clearer view in a much more streamlined fashion. So, in that particular reference of common sense, so today, or technically yesterday, the 29th of April 2022, I had actually seen what Harris Faulkner physically looks as, compared to when in the time frame of Washington State, while working on all sorts of different things at the exact same time. If you need a reference, take a look how I earned 26 scuba diving certifications in a 9 to 10 month in the official capacity time frame, but that's about 10 minutes in my thoughts. So, you know, my official YouTube videos, this is why I do things the way I do, because I comprehend myself. Thank you. And so, in those references of bringing things around so that way you actually see the interconnected portions, because only intelligent people would want that understanding from that knowledge. People who lack intelligence, that want to remain ignorant, would have a problem with that in comparison. So, in those references, I had created this polling where I was like, you know, I think that Harris Faulkner should interview or do one of those things regarding Hillary Clinton. Because I thought I had heard Harris Faulkner bring up either her connection, herself, or her family, or her husband, or whatever it was, regarding the Air Force. And with some of the situations regarding my Medal of Honor art project trips, you know, before Iowa 2018 in that reference, I thought that there would be certain questions because of that knowledge that she would be capable to bring forward to Hillary in a different capacity. I had no idea that she is an African American. I didn't see that until technically yesterday. Although realistically, a lot of times I don't register people that way because I just see them as a human being. It's called humanity. I don't have this bigotry aspect where needing to label certain things when it comes to that. So when I see human beings, I don't pay attention to their skin tone in the ways of, you know, during the 2008 election and 2012 election, and people who've brought that up about 44. I don't see that way. I don't pay attention to that. I can acknowledge it, but that's not important to me. Unlike some people. Some people might think that in those references. So as I had explained, I thought it was important that she would bring that forward. And anybody who could see from her background, and I didn't intend the physical in that reference, that there would be that difference capable to be brought forward, because similar to my lectures regarding, at any point, at this point right now in 2022, in this official YouTube capacity, again, subscribe to my official YouTube channel and share my official YouTube links for my official YouTube videos, and go to my website, www.susanmeeling.com. I thought that she would be the ideal individual to interview that candidate during the 2016 election. I thought it would be a more fair sort of viewpoint in comparison because of the amount of situations, which yes, I voted for who became 45. However, there were certain things that 45 couldn't bring forward on his own. There are certain legalities, even to this day, that 42 and 43 can't bring forward. So somebody such as Harris Faulkner, being with her background, being capable to ask Hillary, a former Secretary of State of New York, as well as Department of Defense Secretary of State, on top of, yes, she had been the First Lady of Arkansas, and yes, she had been the First Lady of the United States of America. However, she's done a few other things since then. So I thought that that would be intellectually intelligent. It would be a different viewpoint, not in the physical way. Though I did notice, and yes, Miss Harris Faulkner looked fantastic in her blue business suit. Yes, she did. Though I noticed that she and the male were the only ones who were wearing business suits, and I personally didn't understand that, because and if that was her choice, okay, that's fine. If that was her choice, I'm not against that. But I know that sometimes there are stylists, and so I don't know what the other situations were in those particular factors. I thought her hair was longer for some reason. I can't remember if her hair was longer because of taking a quick glance at the television, but there is that. But I didn't understand why, and maybe it's not anything to pay attention to. Other people can take that in consideration, but I didn't really understand why the other females were wearing dresses and heels, or skirts and shirt, whatever, however there was whatever, and heels, compared to Harris Faulkner. It didn't make any sense to me in any capacity, but that's my personal viewpoint, my personal opinion in the capacity of, it was just a little clip. I'll put it in the comments or the description section of my official YouTube link for this official YouTube channel video of mine. And so I didn't really understand why that was a situation. Sure, it could be symbolic in some ways. I don't know what the symbolic portion would be though. That's not something I personally would be privy to, though I am curious as to why she was the only female out of 4 females, if I recall correctly, who was wearing a business suit in comparison to the other females. I didn't really study, meaning I didn't really look too much. I just noticed that on a quick glance. So that's something for other people to take in consideration as far as what that would be. So I do know I've seen her in dresses, and maybe it was just she didn't feel like wearing a dress or whatever, and fine, that's her body, her choice. I just didn't know what that particular aspect had been in those particular references. So that, in that combined aspect of this official YouTube video of mine, all of those situations hypothetically might have some correlations. So while some people have claimed that they know how people who are from New Jersey are, if you actually knew that, you would know that on average, a discussion or a lecture is not ever going to be short, because people from New Jersey are actually interested in learning. That's why Princeton and Rutgers are in New Jersey. Look at the actual educational aspects of. Yes, there are technical schools. Yes, there are, campus colleges. Yes, there's a few other campuses in the state of New Jersey, but then also take in consideration of like Brown and yes, Syracuse is
further away regarding New York State, but you do have Harvard and a few others which are extremely close to New Jersey, and anybody who lives in New Jersey knows that people who go to college in New York State as well as Pennsylvania, they go to New Jersey to get clothing every time because they don't want to pay New York City prices. Plus they get different type of food and all sorts of other capacities in comparison to the way it is in New York City. So they know how that actually goes in comparison to people who were born in other areas, and those short attention span aspects, depending on, I know that I dealt with that a lot in the state of Texas, that really short attention span. I don't know if that has to do with all of those, online sort of video games, and, they're more accustomed to the, little ding, 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 ding sounds, and they lose attention because of that sort of LOL sort of stuff for that reference. However, since I believe in betterment and progress, there are starting points for that. So there was a reference, I think it was the Joe Rogan Experience, that he was speaking with someone on that, where they were talking about the progress in that reference. And yeah, those short attention spans, if they don't get certain things, I think that's a problem in regards of, if you want to actually have knowledge, well, you have to actually have knowledge. So if you look at his podcasts, then you have the reference regarding me being a female biologically, those references. There are quite a few that are over an hour because of the amount of details and the amount of knowledge. Because if you don't have that starting point of that knowledge, how would you ever think you could understand? Because it goes back to the version of LOL or TBI or YOLO. And if you don't have that, how do you do so? So again, in reference to, here's two different aspects. I refer to Jeff Bezos more so in the reference of Mr. Bezos, because my books are through the Amazon company publishing. That is a respect, that is an etiquette, because of the way that actually goes. If you were born and raised in the area I specifically had been, you know that it's not a buddy-buddy situation unless you actually develop that friendship in person, face-to-face in person. So in that reference, that is Mr. Bezos, or that is Jeff Bezos. That's not the equivalent of, whatever. So in regards of that particular reference point, which I brought up in Finding a Silver Lining, that is a etiquette where you respectfully address the individual with the proper aspect. So that would be Mr. Bezos or Jeff Bezos, because of how that goes. In the shortened version, in regards of, in comparison to creator or company owner or whatever, and all these whatever, it's still respectful. So there's that etiquette. So in regards of Elon Musk, or who I refer to as E = MC squared, well, both Mr. Bezos or Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk, or E = MC squared, both have the viewpoint as far as Blue Origin and SpaceX. There's also NASA and the formation of the Space Force, and paying attention to those details. Well, in the shortened LOL aspects, you're not going to have the background. You're not going to have the understanding. You're not going to have understanding because you don't have the knowledge. So it's the equivalent of the LOL in comparison, or the TBI, when you know that every person has a different type of head injury. How the head injury occurred, their particular background, it goes back to that problem regarding you want to put them in a specific box. in comparison to the larger overall. You can take a look at my official YouTube channel and see that certain videos, most of them, are in multiple categories because of the connections to those different areas. So there is that basic foundation of the starting point of the knowledge that you are capable, if you have patience, if you actually want to learn, to know that there are going to be certain correlations to pay attention to. But that's if you want that. That's if you seek to understand. But you have to have that knowledge, because you cannot understand what you don't have knowledge of. It's a problem. That's that half-assing thing. Where, there's this symbol. Well, that's just a symbol if you don't have the background to have the understanding, to the knowledge, because you need the knowledge to understand. You can view a symbol one way, but if it only means something to you in that capacity, it's what it is, but you need more for that background to actually understand. You cannot understand without knowledge. And so in the references of certain types, such as civilian recreational scuba divers, they have the knowledge that you can only do your scuba dive for whatever if you're a certain type. That's what you can do as far as if you're a certain type. Military and law enforcement scuba divers, they have a different capacity of their scuba diving, obviously. And then there's my type of scuba diving. So where I had landed at the bottom of the Gulf of Mexico and handled business the way I did and took care of all that I did and surfaced, and in the heaviest amount for one particular scuba dive, I didn't even use half of a tank. Whereas every other scuba diver on that scuba dive had almost hit that red line for the same, and they did less work. By far, all they did was swim. They had the luxury of just swimming in scuba diving, whereas I had been working, which lets you know in that capacity of a difference. So important. So there are those factors in reference to Ms. Harris Faulkner in that regard, where, yes, I can say Harris Faulkner or Miss Faulkner or Miss Harris, because that still shows actual respect because of people knowing that, in comparison to the other situations regarding what I brought forward in finding a silver lining. And so in reference to going back to Mr. Bezos or Jeff Bezos, it's known Jeff Bezos has the aspects of Blue Origin, of Amazon, all those factors in that shortened version, which is not the same as LOL or TBI or YOLO, though gives that in that smaller reference where there's actually a generalized understanding. So then in the equal yet opposite yet along the exact same line, I'm sure there'd be some in the scientific community who could appreciate that particular dry sense of humor. Nonetheless, in regards of Elon Musk, or E equals MC squared, well, there's the theory of relativity, pun intended, regarding Mr. Bezos and Elon Musk in those references. And so with the knowledge of the E equals MC squared, as far as Albert Einstein and the theory of relativity, among a lot of other work that Albert Einstein had done, there are the capacities of being capable to take that into consideration as far as the development of. So unlike the term E equals MC squared, not in reference to Elon Musk, but in reference to the theory of relativity, well, what is the arithmetic behind E equals MC squared? That is a perfect example, in my opinion, to bring this around regarding LOL, or TBI, or YOLO. So where there are those who actually can do the arithmetic, know the actual arithmetic of that shortened E equals MC squared. Maybe, I'm sure there are people who know Elon Musk or E equals MC squared. In person, face to face in person. There are those factors to take into consideration. So when in regards of the background, not just the ethnic background if you have certain connections, and not just because you were born that way, but because of actually having that upbringing, well, there's a difference in that knowledge, that understanding, that comprehension, obviously. Because there are plenty of people, I would guesstimate, who have an African American ethnic background. But maybe they didn't grow up in an area where, in a similarity as I have, where I actually did hair. So there's a huge difference in those factors. I actually did my cousin Jade's hair. I actually put the square, I don't know what it's called, the squares with the little rubber band and then the twists and then the rubber band, the little hair ball thingamabob on both ends. That one I learned how to do. And the smoothing regarding Grandmama's hair, again, right before church, and she was going to sing in the choir. For those who understand that importance, because she couldn't wear her Sunday hat. So, but that is a difference, despite the fact, okay, yes, my skin tone is not in that capacity. However, I did hear something where E equals MC squared had actually lived in Africa. So then there's an irony in that capacity, because his skin tone is fairly light in comparison. I'm fairly certain. I didn't stare too long, but I'm fairly certain. So just pointing that out there, that maybe that's something, I don't know, maybe that's why it's the color, but then there's that's my issues, I guess then. I don't know, but it's not the color black. I'm just saying, their hair, yeah, if you're talking about their hair, yeah, okay, I can go into that. Okay, I can agree that when it comes to African American in that reference, such as 44, yeah, okay, the hair is black, okay. But their skin tone, maybe that's what it was as far as the Democratic Party and the way that was labeled. I don't know. Maybe that's where it's the starting point. Anyway, I appreciate you guys listening and watching, hopefully in the correct capacities, to my lecture on my official YouTube video. And if you're going to leave a comment, please do have etiquette and respect. Subscribe to my official YouTube channel. Share the link to my official YouTube link. And go to my website, www.susanmealing.com. You guys have a good day.